Welcome back to Discourse number 3, part 1, The Great Work, The Journey of Return. This is session number 20. As above, so below. The path of return, as revealed within the mythological symbolism of the hero's journey, provides a significant insight as to the process of ascension or resurrection that is inherent in the time spiral that was referred to in the discourse, You Create Your Reality. In that discourse, it was explained how the archetypical pattern of the divine idea or thought, in the mind of all that is, held in the implicate order or quantum non-local field of potentials, descends or spirals into the explicate order of material manifestation. This is the Hermetic axiom of as above, so below, whereby the macrocosm of the universe is mapped to express in the microcosm of the physical expression of a human form and psychology. That which is above is as that which is below, and that which is below is as that which is above for the performance of the miracles of the one thing. To achieve this descent from formless, etherical spirit to experience material physical reality involves a stepping down of vibrations through 7 levels of harmonic resonance or octaves. Your physical expression as an avatar hence requires 7 other bodies that encapsulate or hold the mold within spinning bands of frequency, the Orphic egg. Those vibrational bands as bodies, from the highest frequency to the lowest, can be referred to as 1. Atomic, 2. Buddhic, 3. Causal, 4. Mental, 5. Astral, 6. Etheric, 7. Physical. This image symbolizes these bands of frequency in relation to the levels of consciousness and the spectrum of the electromagnetic field that have been discussed previously. It must be remembered, however, that it is only the physical band that appears in the matrix which is experienced as the limitation of time and space, which is required for forms to be materially manifested. The other bands of frequency are not limited to the 3-dimensional plane and are instead multi-dimensional levels of consciousness that are timeless and not contained within a locality of time and space as your physical body appears to be. In The Secret Doctrine by Madame Blavatsky, she provides further insight as to the 7 degrees of density. Matter or substance is septenary within our world, as it is so beyond it. Moreover, each of its states or principles is graduated into 7 degrees of density. Surya, the sun, in its visible reflection, exhibits the first or lowest state of the 7th. The highest state of the universal presence, the pure of the pure, the first manifested breath of the ever unmanifested sat or beingness. All the central physical or objective suns are in their substance the lowest state of the first principle of the breath. The term septenary used in this quote relates to the number 7. The number 7 shows up frequently throughout spiritual texts and is considered one of the sacred numbers as it symbolizes union. The other 2 significant numbers are 3, symbolizing light, as above or heaven, and the number 4, so below, earth, symbolizing life. The lowest nature or vibration when experienced as man is therefore number 4, symbolized as the geometric shape of the square or cube. And the spiritual essence as the number 3 appears as a triangle or tetrahedron. When the lower vibrations of man are integrated or raised to that of spiritual essence, this then becomes the symbol of the alchemical philosopher's stone. The symbols used to represent the septenary or union can hence be visualized in these images. The 7 bands of frequency required for the descent of spirit into matter for the one to experience diversity and multiplicity can be further expanded upon within the context of understanding the nature of the bodies or bands. Each band of energy is an expression of density, descending from the most subtle of the etheric to the densest expression on the physical plane. Physical, The physical body is the instrument or vehicle that manifests for the soul to utilize as the avatar in the illusion of separation. It is the lowest density of vibration that has crystallized the electron into an atomic expression with chemical attributes that manifest a physical body. The body allows for the interpretation of electromagnetic impulses to be translated by the sensory apparatus to perceive as touch, taste, vision, auditory, and olfactory sensations. This is the domain of the ego, body, mind level of consciousness. Etheric. Also known as the light body, this is the template or blueprint that the physical body manifests from. This is the life force energy that carries the holographic information from the morphogenetic field to direct growth, regeneration, information processing, cycles, and biological organization within the human entity on the physical plane. An experience of death in a human entity is when the light body as the life force withdraws or detaches from the physiological chemical version of itself. Astral. The astral body can also be known as the emotional body, as it is connected with the feelings, emotions, and desires of the human entity. It is the animating principle that provides the sensations that accompany the ego thoughts to provide meaning and intention as the driver and impetus towards a particular emotional attitude. Some healers and adepts are able to view auras as colours that change with particular emotional states of being. Mental. This is the body of the intellect and where the memory and imagination reside. In A Course in Miracles, it states, "Ideas leave not their source and their effects but seem to be apart from them. Ideas are of the mind. What is projected out and seems to be external to the mind is not outside at all, but an effect of what is in and has not left its source." This is hence where ideas and inspirations are held as memory from the Akashic record. Thought forms are generated from this frequency as very subtle energy patterns. Also, communication telepathically from mind to mind where ideas are shared. Causal. The causal body is the thought prior to form and contains the general concepts of experiences. It holds the vibrational record of all past lives and is the continuity of your essence, which endures from life to life. It hence exerts a karmic influence in your current personal reality experience as to what lessons and growth is to be evolved by your soul in any current reality being manifested. In the earlier discourse, the ego personality, Swami Vivekananda, was quoted in regards to this law of cause and effect, whereby the ego, as name and form, is the effect of this cause and therefore subject to its influence as law. It is only when being or existence gets moulded into name and form that it obeys the law of causation and is said to be under law, because all law has its essence in causation. Buddhic. The vibrational frequencies of consciousness in the former expressions are closer to soul, whereas this expression is closest to spirit and could be considered as the oversoul. This is where the interconnectedness of all, or the one, is most expressed as the web of life, and a brotherhood of man is primal reality. The truth is known, and love is the fullest expression possible. The term Buddha in Sanskrit means the enlightened one. Atmic. This is the unified, undifferentiated mind of infinite intelligence, the full and complete expression of being that is whole and complete. The creator and the created are one and the same, of which nothing more can be said. When you know thyself in truth as a multi-dimensional being, then the teachings contained within the context of the great work of the alchemist and the Raja Yoga practices of the Eastern philosophies may be more clearly understood. The aim of both disciplines is to purify the physical expression of the human entity to channel and experience elevated states of consciousness that are equivalent to the mind of all that is. The hero's journey provided a symbolic representation of this process. Paul Foster Case, in his work, The Great Work, defines this understanding. Disillusion is said to be the whole mystery of alchemy, because the great work enables us to control those functions of our bodies which dissolve or break down into their constitutional elements, the forms of materials taken from our environment. The secret vessels of the alchemist are organs of his own body, together with their etheric and astral counterparts. The great work, then, is really a chemical operation performed under the direction of man's self-conscious intelligence. It begins in man's mind, but is realized by means of changes effected in his physical body. In consequence of these changes, he becomes a new creature, able to exercise powers which are unknown to the average human being. The process of alchemy pertaining to the great work arises from the Hermetic teachings and instructions delivered by Hermes, also known as Thoth, in the era of the ancient Egyptians. The language of this transformational process is therefore delivered in the symbolism of this era and understood that man came from the stars and was a microcosm of the macrocosm or the universe. Therefore, the symbolism used was based on the heavenly planets and their associated earthly elements of which man was constituted from. The symbols utilized by the alchemist are shown in this chart. The Egyptians were not a primitive race as being proclaimed within the modern era, but were far more advanced in spiritual wisdom and understanding than Western man is to this day. The Great Pyramid of Giza was constructed with such mathematical precision and astrological alignment that it can still not be fully fathomed by scientists in the current era. The significant architectural feature of the pyramid arises from the spiritual concept known as squaring the circle. The spirit symbolized by the circle contained the square, symbolic of man as physical matter. The Pyramid of Giza therefore uses the mathematical ratio defined as the golden mean to construct a four-sided pyramid structure whose perimeter is equal to the circumference of a circle. The height of the pyramid is also equivalent to the measure of the circle's radius. The Pyramid of Giza was used as an initiation chamber that utilized sound to elevate states of consciousness with precise tones and cycles of hertz to synchronize with the cosmic logos or word. Its geographic alignment with specific astrological constellations and geometric construct also captured specific electromagnetic frequencies emanating from the heavens. Hence, the sun and solar worship were an important aspect of Egyptian culture. The inner construction of the pyramid contains two chambers. The ascending chamber is known as the king's chamber and the lower was called the queen's chamber. Below the structure itself, descending beneath the ground level, was the subterranean chamber. Once again, the symbolism of man's threefold spiritual nature as the trinity of spirit, soul, and physical as levels of ascension and descent are represented in the archetypical structure of the pyramid itself. The use of physical structures such as temples, pyramids, staircases, ziggurats, towers, and monuments, for example, have been frequently used throughout history to architecturally symbolize spiritual truths that could not be conveyed through words. The symbol of man, as contained within the concept of squaring the circle, and also as the geometric ratio of the cube as the number 4, is to define the physical nature of angles, which express as degrees. The angles of structures became representative of the atomic structures that would determine the level of density that manifested on the physical plane. Man, when symbolized by the cube, was deemed to be the encapsulated nature of the soul, whereby energy was crystallized and held within specific orbits and frequency of spinning atoms. The liberated nature of man, when illuminated with the light of knowledge and understanding as to its true spiritual nature, was symbolized by the cross as the cube unfolded. Hence, the symbol of the cross as used in religious worship is understood. Fritjof Capra, in his book The Tao of Physics, provides an explanation as to how the spin of atoms is responsible for the experience of energy manifesting as density that feels solid to our senses, despite the fact atoms are 99.9% empty space. Whenever a particle is confined to a small region of space, it reacts to this confinement by moving around, and the smaller the region of confinement is, the faster the particle moves around in it. The confinement of electrons in an atom results in enormous velocities of about 600 miles per second. These high velocities make the atom appear as a rigid sphere, just as the fast rotating propeller appears as a disk. It is very difficult to compress atoms any further, and thus they give matter its familiar solid aspect. Capra goes further in this explanation provided in the Tao of Physics to discuss the concept of a standing wave. When a particle is confined to a small region of space with a particular orbit, the waves arrange in such a way that their ends meet. That pattern of orbiting electrons that is produced is called a standing wave. These patterns appear whenever waves are confined to a finite region, like the waves in a vibrating guitar string or the air inside a flute. It is well known from these examples that standing waves can assume only a limited number of well-defined shapes. In the case of the electron waves inside an atom, this means that they can exist only in certain atomic orbits with definite diameters. The appearance of a physical experience that the human entity knows as its personal reality with a body can now be more clearly understood in this context of a standing wave. The various patterns produced by standing waves are dependent upon the spin of orbits contained within a finite space. The physical body is hence a standing wave that is locked within a specific frequency or spin that allows for the manifestation of material reality. The other bodies that have been described earlier are unobservable or formless because their spins of frequency and vibration do not resonate at the rate perceivable to the human entity. The great work is therefore involved with changing the atomic molecular structure of the physiological and psychological structure of the human entity to vibrate in resonance with the vibrational frequencies of the higher aspects of its spiritual hierarchy. This resonance then allows the human entity access to the qualities of love, power, knowledge, and creative inspirations which their higher self expresses. In the spiritual text known as the I Am Discourses, which declared the teachings of the ascended master known as Saint Germain, Discourse 19 refers to this change required at an atomic level of the individual human entity. This particular discourse is, however, not an instruction of Saint Germain, but from Jesus the Christ. Through his own personal ray, Jesus will now speak his wish to the students. The Discourse by Beloved Jesus. There is but one way by which you and the Father may become eternally one, and that is through the full acceptance of his I Am presence, energy, love, wisdom, and power which he has given you, golden links, golden steps by which you climb serenely upward into your final achievement. Sometimes, somewhere, every individualization of God the Father must find his way back to the Father through his I Am presence, fulfilling his cycle or cycles of individualizations in the use of the activity of the outer self. The earth is the only sphere in which there is the density of the atomic structure that you experience. The conscious recognition and use of the I Am presence, which you are, steadily raises the vibrationary action of your atomic structure, unclothing and liberating the electronic activity which is hidden within the atom, enabling you to become self-luminous beings. The symbolic use of structures to impart the understanding of this ascension process visually is also used in religious theosophy and biblical texts. The dream of Jacob's ladder as a stairway to heaven to reunite with God is perhaps the one most known, the Tower of Babylon the other. And he dreamed, and behold, a ladder set upon the earth, and the top of it reached to heaven. And behold, the angels of God ascending and descending on it. And behold, the Lord stood above it, and said, I am the Lord God of Abraham thy father, and the God of Isaac. In the book Lectures on Ancient Philosophy by Manly P. Hall, refers to Jacob's ladder and includes the image of a ziggurat embedded with the alchemical symbols. The pillars at the base symbolize the polarity of opposites as the underworld, and heaven is symbolized at the peak, illuminated by candlesticks radiating outwards. With his opened eye, the Dhamma, or initiated disciple, beholds as a grand staircase the concatenated order of worlds and extends upward from the material darkness, which is the mundane sphere, and disappears into that impenetrable spiritual darkness which is the abiding state of the first divinity. Rising in many levels from this ignoble footing, the stairway of spheres vanishes into the very presence of transcendent cause, whose blinding radiance, ill-concealed by 7,000 veils, is to man's unordered vision and utter lightlessness. This is the mystic ladder of Jacob's, vision upon which the patriarch beheld the angelic choirs. Two great streams of souls move upon this symbolic staircase, one ascending and the other descending, impelled by the rhythm of generation. In the biblical context, the symbolism of Jacob's ladder is the great work that is replaced with the name salvation. The etymological definition of salvation means the saving of the soul. Jesus the Christ appears in the biblical text therefore as the Messiah, which etymologically means anointed one. He was considered to be the saviour of the world. It was the original purpose of religion to provide instruction and assistance to man in his imperfect and fallen state, to rise again to the perfection and integrity of the spiritual order. The etymological definition of religion arises from religare, meaning to bind fast. The term alchemy, pertaining to the great work and arising from the Egyptian era, derives its name from El, which is Hebrew for deity or god, and Chem, meaning black soil. Egypt was originally known as Chemia, meaning black country, as it included the Nile River, which had banks of black soil. The modern-day term for chemistry originates from the word alchemy. The Hermetic arts that were the basis of the great work became known as the black arts because of this association with Egypt. Despite having the same spiritual essence and purpose of religious theosophy, the Christian fundamentalists of the earliest eras of human history deemed such alchemical teachings as heresy and demonic. It is for this reason that the teachings of alchemy were cloaked behind a veil of symbolism and hidden away in the secret rituals of the mystery schools to prevent persecution and death. It must always be remembered, however, that despite these concepts known as alchemy, the great work, salvation, at-one-ment, Jacob's ladder, or the hero's journey, they all pertain to consciousness as the one reality. All is consciousness and all is mind. Everything is still holographic and an idea in the mind of all that is, despite your experiences of a material, physical reality. Hence, transformation and transcendence will always be accomplished through the mind. Paul Foster Case, in his book, The Esoteric Keys of Alchemy, makes this clear. This being rightly understood, it becomes evident that the business of the alchemist has much to do with the reversal of the mental attitudes and ways of life followed by the masses. Finally, alchemy aims at nothing less than complete control over all physical conditions, because its object is to make the personal mind an unobstructed channel for the constituting intelligence which already exercises precisely that control. This concludes session number 20 for Discourse number 3, part 1, The Great Work, The Journey of Return. I shall put a link for session number 21 so that you can join us for that session. Thank you so much for your attendance and time for this one. So be it.